Hey, thanks for watching. If you could subscribe, I would really, really appreciate it. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Anthony and I put a lot of work into this channel, and we would really appreciate the support to try to get this out to more people. Thank you very much. About, I don't know, an hour and a half ago, the Boston Red Sox put out a statement, and Jeff Passan broke the news that the Red Sox had fired basically their entire coaching staff. And in doing so, admit that the beginning of this season was a massive disappointment. At the time of recording and at the time of firing them, the Red Sox set at 10-17. 10-17 to start the season. Now, granted, today they did absolutely beat the brakes off of the Baltimore Orioles, but, you know, those games hadn't happened for the Red Sox yet this season, but those games are going to happen over the course of a 162-game baseball season. So I don't know that a 17-run game is going to go ahead and save your job if you're already on the hot seat. And Alex Cora has quite the resume for somebody who was the manager of the Boston Red Sox. He brought a championship to this city. In 2018, he was the helmsman for the single greatest Red Sox season of all time. They absolutely trounced their way to a World Series championship. And since then, we've been waiting for another year like that. The closest thing we got was the ALCS appearance in 2021 when the Red Sox were knocked out by the Houston Astros, despite a decent showing. But 21 was a anomaly. It wasn't really something that we were looking forward to. At the beginning of 2000, and by that I mean at the beginning of 2021, we weren't sitting here thinking, wow, this is an ALCS caliber team. They squeaked their way into the playoffs on the last day of the season on the back of a Rafael Devers home run in Washington that got them into the playoffs. JD Martinez kind of tweaked his ankle in that game, running out to the outfield. You know, we get all the grand slams. We get an awesome playoff run in 21 that I will never forget for sure. That was amazing. But outside of 18 and 21, like, what exactly did we get out of Alex Cora? And if I'm being completely honest, if we're being as honest as humanly possible, we got a lot of disappointing seasons out of Alex Cora's Red Sox teams. Where I'm landed on this as of right now, and this might change, I don't know exactly how I'm going to feel moving forward on this, but where I have landed on Alex Cora was that he was a very good manager of a team that was ready to win, and ready to win right then. But he was not the best manager for a team that needed development. And what he was handed, now to his credit, when he was hired in 2018, he was handed a team that was ready to win, and he did extremely well with it. He won a World Series. In 2019, everything kind of fell apart when the expectation of Mookie Betts getting traded was on the table and everything like that. And then, you know, that ended up being Mookie's last season in Boston, World Series hangover, what have you, Chris Sale injury. So 2019 was terrible. 2020, he's suspended and fired by the Red Sox. So he serves his 1-year suspension, not an employee of the Red Sox. And then I guess he wasn't fired. He voluntarily stepped down, but like, we know what that means. It's so that they can hire him back. And then he gets hired back in 2021. Surprise playoff run. And then 22, 23, 24, all really disappointing seasons. 2025 was also disappointing. After making the playoffs, they lose 2-1 to the Yankees in the wild card playoff. So what is Alex Cora's resume and what is his future having left this team? He is the hottest managerial candidate available right now. He is such a good managerial candidate. He may not even last long on the market, and like, he may end up managing a team before this season has ended. He could be brought in to another organization in the middle of a season. That's not off the table, I don't think. Not breaking, but 11 minutes ago from Chris Cotillo, Alex Cora and fired coaches saying their goodbyes and hugging players in the lobby of the team hotel right now. Chris Cotillo is on the beat for Mass Live on the Red Sox beat, so appreciate him. Had a couple other tweets I wanted to go through. So the final overall list of fired personnel in the Red Sox system is Alex Cora is dismissed as manager. The hitting coach Pete Fatsi has been fired. Bench coach Ramon Vasquez has been fired. Game planning coach Jason Varitek has been reassigned to a new position within the organization, which I believe that position is just the same type of position that David Ortiz and Pedro Martinez have in the organization, which is you're getting paid to be a figurehead, to be a advisor, to be a former player who did a lot for this organization, and we're very thankful for it. If I know Jason Varitek, and I don't know him personally, but if I know what I've heard of Jason Varitek, this isn't going to sit lightly with him, and he's probably not going to love this situation, but here we go. Kyle Hudson was also dismissed. He was the third base coach. Now, what does that mean for the active coaching staff, and who will be taking over in the absence of all these coaches? Well, the AAA manager of the Worcester Woo Sox, Chad Tracy, is taking over as the interim manager for the MLB team for the Red Sox. The AA manager, Chad Epperson, manager of the Portland Sea Dogs, will serve as the interim third base coach for the Red Sox. And that's kind of what we've got so far. In terms of any sort of media, Sam Kennedy and Craig Breslow will be doing a presser tomorrow morning in Baltimore, so expect news on that bright and early, which is nice. I'm glad they're doing an in-person press conference rather than doing one over Zoom like they did when they traded Rafael Devers last year. Wow. Aaron Boone is still the manager of the Yankees, and Alex Cora has been fired by the Red Sox. I would never have bet on that. Anthony and I are literally recording in 20 minutes, and I had to get on and talk about this. So that's insane. Mike Vrabel is officially not having the worst week of all Boston coaches. That's a funny tweet. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to think, because immediately I go back to what was let's go revisit the. I'm gonna try to get a timeline here of the Joe Girardi firing in Philadelphia, because that to me is maybe the biggest example of a mid-season managerial firing going well. One thing I want to put out there is that Alex Cora is probably going to be dragged through the mud by the Boston media. Alex Cora won a World Series in 2018. We have respect for Alex Cora in this house. Personally, I don't know. There's going to be a lot of stuff that comes out. Yeah, I don't know. So the timeline of Joe Girardi was he spent 2020 and 21 as the manager for the Phillies, and in 22, they were expected to contend, and then in June, on June 3rd, with the Phillies record sitting at 22 and 29, the Phillies fired Girardi. And then Rob Thompson is hired as the interim manager the same day. The Phillies would then go all the way to the World Series and lose to the Astros in 6 games. And this is in 2022. So this sequence of events is something that gives me a little bit of hope. At the time of the firing, the Phillies were 7 games under 500. The Red Sox are currently 7 games under 500. They are 10-17. And so it is time for a move to be made, or at least the ownership group feels that that's the case. John Henry flew to Baltimore personally to fire Alex Cora and the rest of the coaching staff. The coaches were given the opportunity to say goodbye to the players in the lobby of the hotel, and then they were taken away in a limo service. Limo coach hysterically named Coaches for Hire. That is insane. Don't know how that's the limo service you decided to use to take those guys to the airport, but So what does this mean for the Red Sox? Well, Chad Tracy has been the manager that has developed every single one of the young players on the Red Sox roster outside of guys that were traded for, like Caleb Durbin. Guys like Jaron Duran played under Chad Tracy. Roman Anthony played under Chad Tracy. Marcelo Meyer played under Chad Tracy. So that's good. As well as the new third base coach being the manager of the Double A team. I think that what the Red Sox are really showing is that they are now focused on developing the young talent that they have on the roster and getting the most out of them. Because that's what this roster really is. It's a sprinkling of veterans on a bedrock of young talent. Guys like Ceddanne Rafaela, Chad Tracy, Red Sox system. But one thing I do want to touch on is the fact that when you look at the coaches that were retained by the Red Sox, the list is pretty intriguing. Andrew Bailey keeps his job. He is the pitching coach for a team headed by Craig Breslow. And Breslow, famously the director of pitching for the Cubs before he was brought on as the president of baseball operations here in Boston, a personal friend of Craig Breslow, keeps his job. Now, the starting rotation has vastly underperformed by any objective metric. The starting rotation has underperformed to start the season. Today, thank God, Crochet had a return to form today, because prior to that, Crochet had two of the worst outings we've seen from him. At least the worst outing in Red Sox history against the Twins, and then a pretty bad one after that in the next outing. I didn't even get a chance to record an episode following getting swept by the Yankees. And, I tweeted, and I don't have sources or anything like that, but it really felt like something was going to give. I tweeted before the third game of the Yankee series that I thought someone was going to get fired. I thought that someone was going to lose their job after the game, regardless of the result. Well, it took an extra 2 days, but the Red Sox did indeed fire someone, and they fired everybody. The entire coaching staff is gone. The philosophy is out the door. And I mentioned this a second ago. I really want to hit on it. The coaches that were retained are so indicative of what is going to happen in this organization. So currently in the organization, the main coaches that were retained were Andrew Bailey. We already talked about him. And Kyle Bodie. Kyle Bodie. He was previously the director of pitching for the Cincinnati Reds. And now he also is in the hitting department for the Boston Red Sox. He is the founder of Driveline. The founder of Driveline. So it's very clear what the agenda is for this Red Sox organization. And, I had mentioned this to Anthony before, that it was absolutely mystifying that Alex Cora had managed to make it through 2 different front office changeovers and still maintain his position as manager of the Red Sox. Normally, when a new president of baseball operations is brought in, the manager is fired. That's not, through a fault of the manager. It's not really something that you can combat most of the time. Those guys like to bring in their own staff, and those guys like to have a team and a staff and a coaching infrastructure that reflects their philosophy on the game of baseball. Alex Cora was a more old school style, fundamentals of the game style manager. He, had the ability to take analytics into account, which is more than you can say for a lot of people. But Alex Cora taking his staff with it, not taking him with him, but also the rest of his staff getting fired, like Ramon Vasquez, Jason Varitek, like Kyle Hudson. These were guys that were old school baseball guys. These were fundamentals guys. These were play good defense guys. If this team turns into analytically driven, stop throwing fastballs, launch angle, and I hate when analytics are used as a negative. I think that they're very beneficial. But if this turns into what the Red Sox become, and they are run like the Rays were run for the last 10 years, I'm going to be unhappy. I want players I can buy jerseys of. I don't want a roster that has a 60% turnover rate every single year. I don't want 1-year deals for guys who only know how to bunt and steal bases. I don't want a team full of utility guys on any other ball club. I don't want that. I want my team to be the Boston Red Sox, and I want them to sign big names, and I want them to win baseball games. Now, here's the deal. Nothing fixes everything like winning. Winning will fix everything. If Breslow brings in a whole new staff, and all of a sudden this team is on the up and up, and they're winning, high 80s, high 90s, if they win 100 games, I'm never going to complain. I just don't see that happening. I don't see this philosophy of trim the fat being the thing that helps put Alex Cora on the market for another team to hire. That's the part that I'm not looking forward to. Eric Boland, who was on the beat for the Yankees, tweeted 2 hours ago, I don't cover the Red Sox, obviously, but can say this with 100% certainty when it comes to the industry. Alex Cora is overwhelmingly considered far better at his job than Craig Breslow is at his, and it's not remotely close. And I think that is insanely indicative of the whole situation and the situation that the Red Sox have put themselves in when they hired Craig Breslow. When they fired Chaim Bloom and proved that this president of baseball operations position was a position that was, something that they felt comfortable getting guys in and out of over the span of 3 years, big name executives took exception to that, and they stopped wanting to work for the Red Sox. And there were plenty of people that turned down the Red Sox job in favor of going to organizations in maybe reduced roles for the job security that it offered, because the Red Sox do not come off as a job secure place to work right now. So when they hire Breslow, they committed to his way of building a ball club, and they cannot stray from that, because who is going to take the job? There will always be someone to put in the seat, but will they be someone who really should be the president of baseball operations for the Boston Red Sox? They're stuck with Breslow. They're stuck with what they made their bed, and they are being forced to lay in it right now, because Alex Cora, he is going to be so hot as a managerial candidate. Every single team in baseball, basically every single team in baseball, could upgrade by hiring Alex Cora to be their manager. That's just what it is. Alex Cora is one of the best managers and best communicators in the entire game of baseball. So when you fire him with 1.5 years left on his deal, with $13 million still yet to be paid, you invite other teams to then take one of the strengths of your organization and make it their strength. And the only reason that they've been given that opportunity is because you were too afraid to, first of all, let Chaim Bloom work his entire system from the ground up and try to, manage a winning ball club. And then you were too afraid to fire Craig Breslow because you realized that nobody was going to want to take your job. Personally, the way that I wanted to see this go down, and I wish I had said this on the show so that I could have been on the record, was fire Breslow, promote Cora to president of baseball operations. Involve him in the front office, because he said that is eventually going to be his goal. And, maybe Cora doesn't get hired as a manager. Maybe he goes into a front office role, because he's talked about that before, about how he eventually sees himself in a front office role. So maybe this is the opportunity for him to do that. But I think that when you have what Eric Boland said, Alex Cora is overwhelmingly considered far better at his job than Craig Breslow is at his, and it's not remotely close. And then you also have, this is a tweet from Kevin Pillar, should have fired Breslow, Fatsy, best hitting coach I had in my career. It just doesn't look good for the Red Sox, man. It doesn't look like a good look for the Red Sox. I appreciate you guys tuning in. It is an emergency episode of this. I didn't get a chance to recap the Yankee series, and I apologize for that. I wish Alex Cora the best. My pinned tweet is already me saying thank you, Alex Cora. And I mean it. Thank you, Alex Cora, for everything that you gave us for 2018, for 2021, for being who you were, for being as great with this team as you were. I wish that it had ended on a better note. I wish you could have retired as the manager of the Red Sox, but it just gets to the point where someone's got to go. And unfortunately, this roster you were handed by the front office was insufficient, and now you are getting axed because of it. And that is a horrible situation to put yourself in. But I am happy for you. I'm happy you're out of this organization. I'm happy that this organization can no longer hurt you and your family. I hope you go somewhere for a very long time. I hope you get hired as maybe, I don't know, the manager of the Phillies or something, and you're there for the next 25 years of your life. And that you have a wonderful time managing that team, maybe being involved in the front office of that organization. And I hope that, you win a lot of baseball games. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I appreciate it. If you would like and subscribe, please like the video and subscribe. Anthony and I put a lot of hard work into this channel, and I'm going to be doing more of this, especially as this season progresses now, as we see what's going on with the Red Sox and as maybe Chad Tracy is able to squeeze a little more juice out of this roster, even though I don't really think that that's going to happen. So should have fired Breslow. I miss Alex Cora already. Thanks, guys.